to another video, or if this is your first video of mine, hey, how you doing? Today I am bringing you my little list of my best books of 2017 and I am really excited to do so. I feel like over the past year I've read some really good books, so narrowing it down to a top 5 was quite difficult, but I'm pleased with my selection. I realise I'm doing this a tad later than most people, purely because one of the books that has made it into my top 5 I was reading pretty much right up to the cusp. I finished it like only a couple of days before the new year, so I couldn't make it without ensuring if that would go in or not. So sorry this is a tad later than everyone else's, but it's for good reason. So yeah, as I say, I've picked 5 of my favourite books of this year. These aren't books that are released this year, these are just books that I have read this year and loved this year, and without further ado I will just get into it. These are in no particular order, by the way, I'm just kind of picking them up as I go. One of my top 5 books of this year has for sure been The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I buddy read this with G, who is one of my bestest friends, so could have tainted my view, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was so atmospheric, so magical, like it just absolutely transported you to the night circus and I loved every second of it. I admit that it's quite slow, so if you're into more of a fast action-packed book, which I normally am more into a fast action-packed book, then maybe you wouldn't enjoy it as much as I did, but this book spoke to me, I loved it. It was so immersive and it just gripped my heart and I loved it for that. I'm not going to tell you what this is about because I think everyone knows what this is about a circus that takes place at night and lovely things happen and it's all very whimsical. It definitely gave me the Prestige vibes, if anyone's familiar with the film The Prestige. I love that film. I love this book. 5 stars, needless to say, 5 stars. I loved it. I highly recommend it if you haven't already read it. I just really recommend that you do. Next up on my list probably shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, but that is The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. Really, this goes for the whole Raven cycle. I loved every single page of those books. The first one just inspired something within me. The second one was better than the first, the third one was better than the second, and the fourth one blew my mind and I loved it. I came to really love these characters, really love the location. I just think it was amazing, and again, one that I highly recommend if you haven't read. If you haven't read The Raven Cycle, I just really encourage you to do so. I understand that some people really struggle with the first book because it can take a little bit of getting into. I really think it's worth getting into and falling in love with as much as I have. The characters are amazing, the friendship group is amazing, the friendship dynamics are amazing, the romance is there. It's not the biggest thing, it's there, and I feel like this is advertised to have more romance than it actually does have. It is there, but it's not your main aspect, which again I think is why I love it, because I like it when there is a romance there, but there's so many bigger things going on, and that is definitely the case with this book, and I adored it. I adore all the characters, and Cabeswater is an incredibly well-crafted location. Amazing. This series has become one of my absolute favourites. It was one of my goals for 2017 to finish The Raven Cycle. I did that, I loved it, and I have discovered one of my favourite series because of it. 5 out of 5. Next up is another one that probably shouldn't come as a surprise if you're familiar with me and the books that I enjoy, and that is A Conjuring of Light by Victoria Schwab. Again, this kind of goes for the whole trilogy. I love them all, the second one more than the first one, the third one more than both of them. And again, I've discovered one of my favourite series. Not only one of my favourite series, I've discovered one of my favourite authors thanks to this trilogy. I adore it. I adore Victoria Schwab now. I adore all of the characters. Delilah Bard is hands down now my favourite character of all time ever. I love her. I understand there are a lot of people out there that don't love her, but I absolutely do. I can see how she's a problematic character, how she is flawed in her ways, but I love her. I love reading about her. I think she is an incredibly well-crafted character, and I would love to be able to read more about her. I know that Schwab is doing like the, what's she calling it? The Strings of Power, or Threads of Power, that's it. The Threads of Power, whatever that is going to be, and I am pumped for that. I'm pumped for anything that Victoria Schwab does now, because I've fallen in love with her. If you haven't read the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, do yourself a favour and read it because it is incredible. I love it. I actually think out of all of these books, this would be my number one if I was doing it in order. Absolutely, actually, yeah. This is my favourite book I've read this year. Quite possibly my favourite book I've ever read. Ever. Next up is another one that probably shouldn't surprise anyone. A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. First up, I admit this isn't the best in the trilogy. Akamath still takes the cake, but I didn't read Akamath this year. Well, I did, but it was a reread, so it doesn't count. But this, as an all-encompassing for the series, I thought it was a great book. I really, really enjoyed it. I admit there are faults with it. I admit there are things in here that I would have liked to have seen done differently. Everything wrapped up almost too well for it to be perfect, but there's no denying my love for it. I love these characters. I love the family that's built up in these books, and there's no taking me away from that. As much as I acknowledge the problems with this book, I still love it, and I think, again, this is going to be one of them series that I love for a really long time, and I'm probably going to reread. And I know Akafas is coming out, and honestly, I'm a bit disappointed with the synopsis we got from that. I'll probably still love it anyway, but I was kind of hoping for something more, and when I heard the title being A Court of Frost and Starlight, I was kind of like, oh, Winter Court, no, never mind. I love these characters. I am excited to see more of them, of course I am, but I do acknowledge the problems. Needless to say, again, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I am an enjoyment reader, and I enjoyed this a lot. And then the last book I have for you on this little list is the one that I finished just the other day, and that is The Last Namsara by Kristen Sorelli. I adored this book. I feel like I've only just spoken about it because I have only just spoken about it in my December wrap-up, but I loved it so much. The story, the characters, the way that they had woven in the mythology of the world that this is set in, the political uprising, the everything. Dragons, you know, dragons. I love this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I adored this. The storyline was incredible. It follows Asha, who is the Ascari, whose namesake is the god of death and destruction, and she's kind of put in this box of being this destructive girl, and she is a dragon slayer, and she is horrible, and no one will ever love her, and such. And, you know, things happen. Stuff happens. There is a romance in here, but it is by far not the main point, which is a theme for me. I like it when there's a romance that isn't the main plot and there are bigger things going on and the romance is like a side story. I enjoy that. That is the case in here. I loved the characters. I cannot wait for the second one in this. Is it going to be a series? I don't know what it's going to be, but I am so excited to see where this goes, how this goes. The ending of this just had me. I was like, feelings galore. I had so many feelings, and I can't wait to continue it and see what happens with all of these characters. Oh, I loved it. This is the freshest one. As I say, I've only just finished this, so my feelings on this are all quite fresh, and I'm just, like, my heart aches for wanting to know more about this world, these characters, what happens with the dragons. I will admit there is a point in this where I did shed a tear. I did shed a tear. 5 out of 5, again, as if you needed me to reiterate that. I loved it. I loved it so much. So there we have it. There are my 5 top books of 2017 for myself. Let me know what yours are. If you also have enjoyed these books, let me know. Let's gush about them because I loved all of them. I hope you're all having a fantastic new year. And again, sorry this is slightly later than I would have liked it to be, but it's here now and that's what counts. So I will be leaving it at that for today. If you have enjoyed, please give us a thumbs up, chat to me down in the comments about all sorts and everything. You know how that works. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I'm always eternally grateful for that. I upload every Sunday and Wednesday and some odd days in between if I'm feeling generous, and I will see you next time.